Hello friends, welcome to a new episode of Dristhi IAS Editorial Analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC Civil Services exam syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. Thirdly, if there are any important concepts in the editorial, then we also discuss that. So let us begin today's editorial analysis. Today's editorial has been taken from the Hindu and it has appeared on 8th of May. The title of the editorial is Toxic Disaster. It says that the gas leak tragedy is a reminder that safety is paramount when exiting the lockdown. Now let us look at its linkage with the UPSC syllabus. So we find that it links directly with GS paper 3 where we have disaster management as a topic. Let us look at the key points of the editorial. The editorial says that the gas leak tragedy is a reminder that safety is paramount when exiting the lockdown. And we have seen that 3 industrial accidents have taken place, one in Tamil Nadu, one in Chhattisgarh, and the major one in Andhra Pradesh. And in all these incidents, the factories or the industrial establishments were trying to reopen after this period of lockdown. And as the editorial is saying that safety is paramount, and now the government has also ordered that all these process industries that they need to be very careful while restarting their operations, and all proper safeguards should be taken by these industries. And the example of process industries are pharmaceuticals, chemicals, petroleum industries. Editorial further says that the disastrous leak of a toxic chemical that killed several people and left hundreds sick near Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh has come as a shock. Now the residents of the habitations around Gopalapatnam, which is close to the site of LG Polymers plant where this gas leak happened, these people passed out as the hazardous styrene vapor swept through the area at night. And this gas leak happened around 2 a.m. when the people were fast asleep. So there was that much delay in the reaction time as well. And only by the early hours of the morning, people realized such leak has happened and evacuation measures were activated by the local authorities. Several deaths took place as people tried to flee, but the chemical rendered them unconscious. And there are accounts of people falling from buildings or into wells and ditches as they lost consciousness. Many of these people lost their lives as well. Now, due to this unfortunate incident, these people have become the first victims of the exit from the lockdown as industrial units were allowed to resume their operations. And this incident also points to the lack of safety standards and practices across industries all over India. So the chemical involved in this incident is styrene, and this is included under the schedule of the manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemical rules 1989. We'll see both styrene and this law in more detail in the key concept section today. Now these rules lay down strict norms on how it should be handled and stored. But obviously this incident shows that these laws were not being followed in their true spirit. Editorial says that it might take an inquiry to establish what caused the incident, but the company and the state government knew that the chemical was hazardous and characterized by poor stability. That means this chemical styrene, it has to be stored under 17 degrees Celsius temperature and it very easily evaporates. So authorities of the plant as well as the government, they knew that this chemical was hazardous and it was characterized by poor stability under a variety of conditions that could even lead to explosive situations. So this was not unknown to the authorities. Editorial says that it is also reasonable to assume that the safety mechanism built into the storage structures for storing such hazardous chemical was either faulty or allowed to be overridden. Now, whatever was the cause, this needs to be found out through a proper inquiry and accountability needs to be fixed. Also, it is important to know, was the reopening work at the factory left to unskilled people, as some city officials have doubted? Because of this lockdown, many of the skilled laborers have left for their hometowns. All these plants were shut and they were operating under very less manpower. So was there a situation where unskilled people were operating this and that led to this mishap? So that needs to be found out. Now the Andhra Pradesh government, it must focus immediately on the medical needs of those who have been grievously affected by the gas leak, which has inevitably drawn comparisons with the infamous 1984 Bhopal Gas Tragedy. So we'll also see this 1984 Bhopal Gas Tragedy in the key concept section. As a harmful chemical, styrene could have chronic effects beyond the immediate symptoms. Now the international safety literature cites it as a substance that may cause cancer. So it is also a carcinogenic substance. And because it can lead to cancer, there is no safe limit for exposure to it. Further, the editorial says that solatium payments and compensation for the victims and families are important, but so is the access to highest quality of healthcare for the victims. The editorial says that what happened in Gopalapatnam is not an isolated case, and it should serve as a warning for industries across India that safety cannot be compromised with. Safety first should always be the rule, and it has to be complied both by the industries as well as by the government authorities. And although some may see the incident as a consequence of the lockdown, but the states have the authority under the central government's orders to exempt process industries. So the lockdown cannot serve as an excuse for not adhering to the safety norms. And the state governments also have this power that they can exempt the process industries from the lockdown orders for their safe operations. So that could have been done by the state government. So state government is also guilty on this count. It also needs no special emphasis that safety of industrial chemicals requires continuous watch with no scope for waivers, because these industries are hazardous in nature. They are dealing with hazardous chemicals, and any mistake on the part of the factory management can have disastrous consequences, as seen in this incident. As India aims for a wider manufacturing base, it needs to strengthen its approach to public and occupational safety. That is very much needed. Finally, the editorial makes this point that transparent oversight is not a hurdle to industrial growth. Rather, it advances sustainable development by eliminating terrible mistakes which can have catastrophic costs. So it is very important for all the stakeholders, the industry, the government, the local citizens, to realize that safety cannot be the second priority. It has to be always the first priority. And we need to have updated regulations as well as regular checks to make sure that all the regulations are getting complied with. So these were the key points of the editorial. Now let us look at the key concepts. In key concepts today, let us look at styrene. So this is the molecular structure of styrene, and its chemical formula is C8H8, and it is a synthetic chemical derivative of benzene. It is liquid and flammable in nature, and its sources are vehicle exhaust, cigarette smoke, and in natural foods like fruits and vegetables, but in very trace quantities. Now what is its impact on humans? So it can lead to respiratory problems, irritation in the eyes, irritation in the mucous membrane, and gastrointestinal issues. Application is used in the manufacturing of polystyrene plastics, fiberglass, rubber, and latex. And according to the Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Rules 1989, styrene is classified as a hazardous and toxic chemical. And the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, which is an affiliate of World Health Organization, has classified styrene as a possible carcinogen. That means it can lead to cancer. And for safe storage, styrene has to be kept under 17 degrees Celsius temperature. So this was about styrene. Now let us look at the Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Rules 1980. The Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Amendment Rules 1989. These were first enacted in 1989 by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, which is now Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. And these were later amended in 1994 and 2000. It regulates the manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemicals in India. And hazardous chemicals have been grouped under 3 schedules. And the regulatory requirements for these hazardous chemicals are different for each schedule. What are the salient features of these rules? So it says that the occupier generating hazardous waste shall take all practical steps to ensure proper handling and disposal of hazardous waste in an environment-friendly manner. The State Pollution Control Board shall grant authorization having satisfied that the operator of a facility or an occupier, as the case may be, possesses appropriate facility, technical capabilities and equipment to handle hazardous waste. Import of hazardous waste to be allowed only for processing or reuse as raw material. So even in this algae plant where this leak happened of styrene, they were not producing styrene. They were importing it from outside and then using this styrene to produce polystyrene and other products. Now the central government shall, after examining the matter and on being satisfied on various environmental implications, it will grant permission or may refuse permission to import such hazardous waste. And here we should also be aware about the Basel Convention on Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste. This is a very important convention, keeps getting asked in exam. So Basel Convention deals with the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Porters must furnish complete product safety information to the competent authority and must transport imported chemicals in accordance with the amended rules. So these are the salient features of the rules on the manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemicals, 1989. So the year 2019, it marked the 35th anniversary of Bhopal Gas Tragedy. that took the life of thousands of people at midnight of 2nd of December 1984 in Bhopal. And the incident was the result of leakage of a poisonous gas, methyl isocyanate, from this Union Carbide factory. And methyl isocyanate is highly poisonous and it is used in the manufacture of pesticides. In this, nearly 46 tons of methyl isocyanate gas was released into the atmosphere. It affected the lungs, brain, eyes, muscles as well as gastrointestinal, neurological, reproductive and immune system of people. And as per the official data, the incident claimed the lives of 2,259 people immediately after the incident. Bhopal Gas Tragedy remains the world's worst industrial disaster, and the recent incident in Visakhapatnam has brought back the memories of Bhopal Gas Tragedy. Though the incident is much smaller in scale and even styrene is not as poisonous as methyl isocyanate, but it goes on to show that even after 35 years, India has not moved much in the industrial safety field and we still remain susceptible to such industrial disasters. Here we should also know about MC Mehta versus Union of India case 1986. The Supreme Court came up with this absolute liability principle, which holds that in case of industrial disasters, no proof of complicity is required. Company that is responsible for such an act has to compensate everybody who suffers a harm on account of such industrial accident. Now this was all in the editorial analysis. Now let us look at what kind of questions can be asked in PT and mains. Prelims, you can be asked about styrene, polystyrene, at what temperature they need to be stored, what are their uses and applications, and so on. You can also be asked about the location of the place where this leak happened and the company belongs to which country. So it's a South Korean company. And in mains, you can be asked about industrial safety, liability in such cases, principle of absolute liability. Such kind of things can be asked. Why India is not able to learn lessons from the industrial disasters that keep happening with regular frequency. Also, questions can be asked on disaster management at National Disaster Management Authority, National Disaster Response Force, etc. Here we should know that a team of National Disaster Response Force was sent from Pune for the CBRN team. CBRN stands for Chemical, Biological, Radiological and Nuclear. The CBRN team was sent from Pune to Visakhapatnam for handling the gas leak. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.